Tonight, the first shot.
How do you feel to be the first person to get the shot?
I'm excited.
A longtime personal support worker becomes the first person in Ontario to receive a dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. The momentous day and the road ahead. Plus,
the law is the law, and those people obviously had no regard for the law.
the mayor with some harsh words after Toronto police had to shut down a noisy party inside a downtown bar. And
so what we need is the government to step in and provide supports for folks who have been disproportionately impacted.
the motion put forth by an MPP that aims to help business owners in Little Jamaica that are struggling with the combined impact of the pandemic, flooding, and LRT construction. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Ontario entering a new phase in its fight against COVID-19 today. A personal support worker became the first person in the province to receive a dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, kicking off a vaccination campaign that's expected to last well into next year. As Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley reports, the first doses come as new cases and hospitalizations continue to spike.
A historic moment in the battle against the pandemic. Ontario administers its first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. The recipient, personal support worker Anita Quidonjan. She's worked in long-term care for 30 years.
I'm okay.
Yeah?
So thank you very much for your help.
Others at the front of the line for the first shots today, 2 more personal support workers and 2 nurses. All of them staff at the Rakai Centres, a long-term care home in downtown Toronto, hit by an outbreak of COVID-19 in the first wave.
I did it! You did it! We have been waiting for this for so long, and I'm here now, and I'm so thankful.
We mostly today are thinking of the residents of long-term care, those that you gave loving care to, as well as sadly some of those people who passed away.
The province is expecting 90,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine to be shipped by the end of the month. The long-term care staff getting the first shots today won't be fully protected against the virus until they get a second dose 3 weeks from now.
We're doing this not only for ourselves, but mostly for our residents and their families, so that they have faith in us that we're offering the safest home that we can possibly do.
The first vaccine shipment arrived late last night at the airport in Hamilton, including 3,000 doses going to Ottawa to be administered to long-term care workers there starting tomorrow.
There's a long road ahead of us, but what this represents is hope and proof that this pandemic will come to an end.
The journey on that long road will take months. Ontario does not plan to start vaccinating the general public until April. And meanwhile, COVID-19 just keeps spreading. In the past week alone, nearly 13,000 new infections and nearly 200 more deaths. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, more Toronto schools are closing early for the holiday break due to COVID-19. And these school outbreaks are no longer only happening in areas that are hotspots. Ali Shiasan has more.
9 TDSB schools will be closed until January. When Humewood Community School parents got the email this weekend that their kid's school was on that list,
our reaction was, I think...
Oh no, how are we going to get work done?
Disappointing, but not all that surprising.
There had been a series of notices of COVID cases in the school in kindergarten and in grade 1-2, and so as they kept coming, you kind of thought that eventually there might be a closure.
Some of the schools are in COVID hotspots, but not all of them. There is no specific number, no threshold that prompts public health to shut down a school.
They look at the individual circumstances around all the cases and then make that determination. Sometimes they don't have a lot of information about those cases, and that too can be concerning.
But one finding is consistent.
We continue to find that when a student has COVID-19, most often the infection happened outside of school, not at it.
What's also concerning for some parents, the affected schools are set to open January 4th, after the holiday break.
I'm hoping they delay the return to school because I'm not convinced that...
Everyone we'll follow
things
the
will
rules.
improve over the holidays.
Toronto's medical officer of health wouldn't endorse extending the holiday break today and reiterated their advice to keep the spread down.
I'm hoping that the residents of Toronto will continue to follow the advice that we've been putting out there and limiting their interaction, as challenging as it is over the holiday season.
More specifically,
really focusing on keeping their close contacts limited to those with whom they live.
with 1 week to go before the holiday break officially starts, the Toronto District School Board said it is possible they'll announce more closures. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's top doctors are warning people that new daily cases are expected to rise. This comes as the province sees an average positivity rate of 3.5% over the last few days.
Would not surprise me if we went over 2,000 cases in a day, which we have not breached so far. We might see that early in this week here.
The province's 7-day average is now 1,841. That's up from about 1,500 just 2 weeks ago. About 59% of the cases reported since last Thursday are in the regions in red or lockdown levels. On the weekend, the province hit a record number of single-day testing, with more than 65,000 tests reported on Saturday. Now, despite rising numbers of COVID cases, police and bylaw enforcement officers are still dealing with people who refuse to abide by lockdown restrictions. Over the weekend, Toronto police say they closed down a bar hosting dozens of unmasked people on Queen Street West, something the mayor today described as appalling.
The law, and those people obviously had no regard for the law, any different number of aspects of the law. And I would just hope if they don't care about the law, I don't know why that would be, but if they don't care about the law, maybe they would think about the 14 people that died of COVID-19 over the course of the weekend in the city of Toronto and the hundreds of other people who got sick, some of them sick in a way that will do damage to their health for the rest of their lives. I'd hope they might just think about that for just 1 minute before they start hosting parties and people not wearing masks anywhere in the cities.
Police say 2 owners of the bar were issued summons to appear in court, and they could be facing fines of up to $100,000. Turning to other news now, a man is dead after a scaffolding deck collapsed at a construction site today. Toronto Fire said crews arrived to find a victim without vital signs. Paramedics performed CPR, but the man was pronounced dead a short time later. The construction site is near Widmer and Adelaide. The Ministry of Labour is conducting an investigation. Well, nearly 4 years to the day he died on the floor of a jail cell. New court documents reveal the guards who restrained Suleiman Fakiri in the final moments of his life directly violated use of force rules.
He had a special relationship with each and every single one of us. And it's that void that hasn't gone away. And I don't think it'll ever go away.
Fakiri died December 15th, 2016. He was awaiting a mental health assessment at the Central East Correctional Center in Kawartha Lakes. He had been arrested after allegedly stabbing a neighbor during what his family says was a schizophrenic episode. A week and a half later, while on remand at a hospital, at a prison, there was an altercation with 7 guards, ending with Fakiri's death. Tonight, his family is outraged at new revelations about that altercation, including a jail sergeant who was there and acknowledges what happened was wrong. Angelina King has the exclusive story and a warning. It contains graphic images.
He was pepper sprayed, his hands cuffed behind his back, his legs shackled, laying on his stomach, a spit hood over his head. Then Suleiman Fakiri was briefly left in his cell, an image that still haunts his brother.
This was a Canadian man, a vulnerable man, who lost his life in the very institution that was supposed to take care of him.
The Fakiri family is suing the province and jail staff. Newly filed court documents say guards broke 3 ministry policies when using the spit hood. The policy states staff must ensure an inmate is not placed on their stomach or any other position that could result in positional asphyxia is not left unattended when wearing a spit hood, and says an inmate must be properly decontaminated when pepper spray is used. There's also a warning label on the packaging of the spit hood that reads, "Improper use can cause injury or death and may cause asphyxiation, suffocation, or drowning in one's own fluids." Under questioning by the Fakiri family's lawyer, a jail sergeant who has since been fired says she would never combine the use of pepper spray and a spit hood when someone is on their stomach, their hands cuffed behind them. Then she's asked, "The reason you don't do that is because that would be basically a triple threat of asphyxia." Her response? Absolutely. That sergeant had gone to Fakiri's cell during the altercation. She was one of the last to leave the cell, but says she stayed just outside of the closed door and kept her eye on Fakiri through a window. After about a minute, she noticed he wasn't breathing. The documents also say that's when she noticed for the first time he had a spit hood on. She says it appeared to be filled with fluid or vomit.
That perfect storm, where combinations of things can happen that lead to a death.
Michael Burgess conducts use of force training and says the case brings up questions about restraint asphyxia, a position that can restrict someone's ability to breathe.
There's a number of things that we've learned over the last 40 or 50 years about asphyxia. One of the major lessons initially learned is never to leave a prisoner face down on the ground in handcuffs any longer than you absolutely have to.
In a statement, the jail sergeant's lawyer said in part, "We will let the process determine where the real culpability in this matter lies. My clients have been scapegoated by their employer for their heroic efforts to avert the tragic result in this incident." The Ministry of the Solicitor General wouldn't comment on the case because it's before the courts. No criminal charges have been laid, and the coroner deemed Fakiri's cause of death unascertained.
Even though it was shocking, disappointing, this tragedy, justice still seems to be elusive. They didn't just fail Suleiman Fakiri. They didn't just fail the Fakiri family. They failed every Canadian who's suffering from mental illness.
These new revelations are just one more step in the Fakiri family's quest for accountability. Ultimately, they'd like to see criminal charges laid against all the guards who were involved. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
And Ontario's police watchdog has cleared officers in the shooting death of a black man from back in April. The Special Investigations Unit says there is no basis to proceed with criminal charges in the death of 26-year-old Deandre Campbell. Campbell was shot and killed by Peel Regional Police in April after he had called 911 for help during a mental health crisis. Chris Glover has more on the findings and why some say the SIU needs to be completely overhauled.
A police watchdog investigation found when officers arrived at this Brampton home on the evening of April 6th, 26-year-old Deandre Campbell was fighting with his mother holding a knife in the kitchen. Police tased him before shooting him twice, killing him.
This guy should get 26 years in prison, the same age as my son. He should do that time.
That was Campbell's father, Claudius, in June, calling for criminal charges. But now the SIU's director has ruled there will be none. In Joseph Martino's decision, he wrote there's a strong case to be made that the officer reasonably believed that he needed to fire his gun to protect himself against the imminent risk of a knife attack. But he also found the officers made no effort to verbally calm Campbell during the ordeal. Peel's chief of police today called it a rare and tragic situation. Our officers deal every day with people in crisis, he said, and the overwhelming majority of cases are resolved safely and peacefully. Not good enough for many online today. This person called Peel Police violent and racist.
We cannot trust the SIU to deliver.
Last week, some protested at a Peel police station about multiple recent police killings of black and brown people, rebuking the police watchdog's investigations.
This is what justice is! This is how it starts! This is how it starts! Not with them!
Following today's SIU decision, the group urged citizens to call Peel Police to demand better. Campbell struggled with schizophrenia and called 911 himself the night he died. Back in June, his sister Michelle said that's among the toughest parts.
If he's looking for help and if he's the one that's calling, he shouldn't have ended up 6 feet under. Now when I have to walk to a graveside with my siblings, it hurts me to know that's the reason where I'm going.
for him.
There have been a string of police killings in Ontario of people in mental health crisis, including 62-year-old Ijaz Chowdhury in his home in June. The NDP call it a troubling pattern and say it shows a different response to 911 mental health calls needs to happen immediately. Many hope Campbell's legacy can be about ensuring police killings like this come to an end. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, a plea for help for businesses struggling in Toronto's Little Jamaica neighborhood.
You don't know whether or not things are open. It looks like a ghost town.
It's an area hit hard by both the pandemic and long-running construction. Now a local MPP wants the province to step up. That story coming up next. Welcome back. Toronto's Board of Health has approved a COVID equity action plan for the city. The plan includes 24 actions to address the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on racialized communities, people who live in low-income households, and neighborhoods in the hardest-hit parts of the city. Data on race and income collected by Toronto Public Health shows those who identify with a racialized group are more than 3 times as likely to contract COVID-19 as white Torontonians. And a person living in a low-income household is more than twice as likely to get the virus as someone who doesn't. The plan also includes increased capacity on busy bus routes to reduce crowding in the parts of the city where rates of COVID are the highest. An opposition MPP is calling on the province to provide more help for businesses in Toronto's Little Jamaica. Business owners in the neighborhood have been struggling, not only because of COVID-19, but also due to flooding and long-running construction of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. MPP Jill Andrews' new motion is asking the government to create a strategy that includes compensating hard-hit businesses. Angelina King has more.
It doesn't feel like Little Jamaica anymore. It actually feels like construction town.
Jamila Reeves was born in Jamaica and has called the neighborhood her home away from home for the last decade. But now she worries about the future of her beloved community.
The construction formed like a barricade around certain businesses. You don't know whether or not things are open. It looks like a ghost town.
That's why NDP MPP Jill Andrews tabled a motion asking the province to provide up to $30,000 to struggling businesses in the area. She wants a task force created to ensure communication between Metrolinx, the Transportation Ministry, and businesses. The motion also calls for historical designation of Little Jamaica and to ensure affordable housing is included in all new builds.
Many of the small businesses that make Little Jamaica what it is, they're boarded up. You can't access them on foot.
Today, Andrew held a press conference with business owners in the area. The owner of this salon says she's worried about the future of the neighborhood that's so rich in culture.
They come for food, they come for barbering, they come for shopping and patty shop. These are important to us as a community. And I think that we need to maintain that. We need support. We need help.
Just down the street, another salon owner says foot traffic is non-existent due to the construction.
Metrolinx has been more of a devastation to my business than COVID.
Metrolinx says it's working to help businesses and has ramped up cleaning in the area. It pointed to the $3 million promised by the government in March to help promote business. In a statement, it said it will continue to support businesses through shop local marketing and advertising, parking, community outreach, and social enterprise. But Reeves says without more tangible help, she's afraid Little Jamaica will disappear.
It's kind of sad. It's not what it used to be.
The delayed LRT is now supposed to be complete in 2022 after 11 years of construction. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Mainly clear skies tonight with some cloudy periods and some flurries expected in the overnight. Let's go to our meteorologist, Colette Kennedy, for more on the forecast. And Colette, we'll be getting more of a taste of that December chill in the coming days.
Thanks, Kelda. You know, we've got this shot of colder air that's moving in over the next few days and nights, but it's really just pushing us back to what are kind of seasonal temperatures. It takes a little getting used to, however. We saw this a little earlier the first week of this month, too. So that cold air surge coming in, still some lake effect because of the winds, giving us the wind chill, but also driving some of these lake effect, these snow squalls. We've had the weather travel advisories closer to the shores of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, where accumulations tend to even locally 15 centimeters, that potential there. But the winds are kind of shifting direction, less from the west, northwest, and around to the north as we go into tomorrow. So that'll shift where we're seeing those squalls, and they'll be dying off. But if you're looking for the temperatures to come back, well, into this cold snap for a few days, by the end of the week, things will start to change. Now today, daytime highs look pretty good in many cases. Other than Ottawa, you saw that, hey, we got above freezing. That's not going to be the case for your daytime highs for Tuesday. So some of those squalls coming across, and yes, the flurries make their way all the way to the north shore of Lake Ontario, so we get that into the city, lose visibility at times. Even into tomorrow morning, we may have some flurries for that morning commute. I would definitely allow extra time the further north you are from the city, but those will be backing off. And then we have more sunshine kind of coming in there, mixing with the cloud. That is until we get into Tuesday night towards Wednesday. pretty big system that's going to dump snow on the northeastern U.S. That's going to be coming by, and it stays to the south of us, but that easterly flow sets up some more lake effect here, likely quite a bit of cloud cover, but some of that lake effect towards Hamilton, Oakville, around towards the city for Wednesday. That'll be something I'll be watching carefully, because elsewhere you won't be dealing with anything. It's very localized in that case with that easterly wind. Southwestern Ontario, let me show you what your temperatures are for tonight. London doing slightly better, -8 towards Windsor. The wind chill is significant, though. You really need to prepare for that with your layers and your coats, hats, and mitts and that kind of thing tomorrow as you're heading out and taking care of the kids as well. So tomorrow afternoon, this is what I was talking about, trying to get the temperature above freezing. It's not happening. -1 there will be your high. And overnight around the Golden Horseshoe, look at this range, slightly milder for St. Catharines, but elsewhere, -12 will be the feels-like temperature, or even cooler than that, and still a few flurries here and there lingering into tomorrow morning. And then we start to see a little bit improvement in our sky conditions. But be aware, as those winds shift, there's still a few times we could get a flurry coming through the sky. Wednesday, I'll be watching carefully. Watch these overnight lows. In fact, this should be -5, but watch these overnight lows. It's going to be quite chilly, and these wind chills stick around, Kelda, till we get towards the end of the week.
Thanks so much, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
And just a reminder, our annual Sounds of the Season fundraiser continues until the end of the month. So far, you've helped us raise more than $845,000 for GTA food banks. That's wonderful news because with the pandemic, the need is even greater this year. You can find out how to donate at cbc.ca/SOTS. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.